por dar inicio a la conferencia del día de hoy. Vamos a empezar con un breve mensaje introductorio de los presidentes de las tres organizaciones, falta la UXNAM, la cual podrá hablar la doctora Álvarez Bulla un poco, que estamos convocando esta conferencia científica, que se llama Balance, 40 años de ingeniería genética y 20 años de cultivos transgénicos. Cada uno de los siguientes ponentes se presentará a sí mismo y, le cedo la palabra a la doctora Álvarez Bulla de la Unión de Científicos Comprometidos con la Sociedad. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Alma. I just want to say in English, for those of you who do not understand Spanish, you can get one of these with the entrance, because there is going to be simultaneous translation, Spanish, English, English, Spanish. I'm going to speak in Spanish, and others are going to speak in Spanish. So for those of you who do not speak Spanish, you can get one of these in the entrance. Yo soy Elena Álvarez Builla, soy investigadora de esta universidad, del Instituto de Ecología de la UNAM. Actualmente también presido la Unión de Científicos Comprometidos con la Sociedad. Buenos días a todos. Es un gran gusto contar con la presencia de cada uno de ustedes, queridos colegas, estudiantes, miembros de organizaciones de la sociedad civil, representantes de la prensa y en general ciudadanos y ciudadanas. Distinguidos científicos, colegas, queridos amigos que han venido desde lejos, desde Sudamérica, diversas partes de México, Estados Unidos, Europa, Asia y África. Es un gran gusto y motivo de profunda alegría el recibirlos aquí para llevar a cabo este seminario internacional en preparación a la reunión bienal de la Conferencia de las Partes del Protocolo de Cartagena en Bioseguridad, que hemos llamado Balance, 20 años de cultivos genéticamente modificados y 40 años de ingeniería genética. Es un gran gusto para nosotros recibirlos en esta, nuestra Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, y dentro de ella, en nuestra Facultad de Ciencias. Es particularmente relevante que para esta importante ocasión contemos con representantes distinguidos de 4 redes de científicos críticos de todo el mundo: ENCER de Europa y Asia, TWAS con representantes de diversos países del llamado Tercer Mundo, UXNAM de Latinoamérica, una organización hermana de la UX de México, la Unión de Científicos Comprometidos con la Sociedad. Los científicos que participamos en estas redes nos impulsa un quehacer riguroso, crítico y con un profundo compromiso social y ambiental que coadyuve a contrarrestar la actual situación nacional y mundial caracterizada por una crisis ambiental y social sin precedentes, una inequidad socioeconómica que no cesa de profundizarse, una creciente brecha tecnológica, un creciente ejercicio del poder mediante la violencia, una incapacidad para resolver los conflictos sociales de manera racional y pacífica, un aumento del uso del conocimiento científico y tecnológico para fines bélicos, así como para satisfacer los intereses económicos de las grandes corporaciones multinacionales, y una tendencia creciente para privatizar las entidades públicas de investigación y educación superior. Esta conferencia contribuye a propiciar una reflexión profunda y emitir opiniones fundadas sobre un tema fundamental: las tecnologías que han permitido la transformación irresponsable de la vida a un nivel profundo, con implicaciones impredecibles y algunas posiblemente irreversibles. Nos empeñamos en esta tarea con el auxilio de nuestras disciplinas científicas y en un espacio interdisciplinario de debate sobre la relación de la ciencia con la sociedad, y en particular sobre el papel de los centros de poder en la generación y aplicación del conocimiento. En esta ocasión se presentarán análisis científicos y se evaluará el actual estado del conocimiento sobre organismos genéticamente modificados, a 20 años de su liberación al ambiente y a 40 años de la ingeniería genética. De particular interés es el análisis de los impactos de estos desarrollos sobre los campesinos, las comunidades, la salud y el ambiente. Se resalta la dispersión sin control de transgenes y OGMs y sus consecuencias. También se discutirán con especial atención las implicaciones de los últimos desarrollos tecnocientíficos dentro de la llamada ingeniería genética, como son la edición genómica, el llamado CRISP y Cas9 y los conductores genéticos con implicaciones profundas a la vida en el planeta. Estamos ante un momento clave para la bioseguridad y la diversidad biológica y cultural del mundo, ambas cruciales para la integridad de los territorios de los pueblos y para sustentar su identidad y soberanía, pero también para la seguridad alimentaria, la salud y la vida en el planeta. La internalización de la ciencia a la lógica de los mercados globales ha implicado cambios profundos en la lógica de operación de la misma, dando lugar al desarrollo de tecnologías que se aplican globalmente con base en políticas de desregulación de intercambios económicos y estrategias mercadotécnicas bien articuladas, pero divorciadas de la ciencia imperante en un momento histórico particular. Estamos hablando de ciencia aplicada sin ciencia básica, trastocando la secuencia temporal normal de las aplicaciones científicas en siglos pasados. Las nuevas tecnociencias se legitiman con argumentos pseudocientíficos o paradigmas científicos ya caducos y se imponen mediante estrategias al servicio de los intereses corporativos que rigen la dinámica económica global. Es una forma nueva de dictadura. Los intereses corporativos globales han impactado y sesgado el quehacer científico, tanto en entidades y proyectos públicos como, obviamente, en los privados. Esto se traduce en la reducción de la diversidad de los enfoques y las preguntas del quehacer científico, en la aceleración de la gestación del conocimiento aplicable, en la promoción mercadotécnica de tecnologías obsoletas, insuficientes o riesgosas, en la preeminencia de objetivos de producción más que en la curiosidad durante la praxis científica, en la erosión del comunalismo a favor de la privatización del conocimiento mediante títulos de propiedad o patentes, así como en la desestimación estratégica de la complejidad ya innegable de los sistemas implicados, salud, agricultura, etc., evitando, por tanto, el principio de precaución. Esta realidad innegable está poniendo en peligro a la ciencia como un campo social cuya finalidad histórica ha sido la de constituir una reserva de objetividad para la sociedad. La ciencia bajo peligro puede actuar en detrimento de la humanidad, nos decía Pierre Bourdieu. Cuando las aplicaciones tecnocientíficas no son precedidas de ciencia básica rigurosa, es urgente someterlas a un intenso escrutinio teórico. Es imprescindible transparentar qué interacciones de la ciencia con otros campos sociales están determinándolas por encima de los principios del conocimiento para asegurar la preeminencia de la objetividad. Este contexto es por demás relevante para el análisis de la llamada ingeniería genética, imposible, por cierto, en sistemas complejos como son todos los seres vivos, y una de sus derivaciones más rentables, la generación de cultivos transgénicos. En esta serie de conferencias, impartidas por expertos internacionales muy reconocidos en las diversas áreas que se abordarán, se repilan datos, argumentos, hipótesis, análisis que sustentan la urgencia de echar marcha atrás y de aplicar con rigor el principio de precaución como un eje rector y de resarcir daños antes de que sea demasiado tarde. Con la convicción de que el quehacer científico debe desarrollarse de una manera éticamente responsable y con un claro compromiso con la sociedad y el ambiente, privilegiando siempre los principios de sustentabilidad, equidad, democracia y justicia como guía insoslayable de los principios epistémicos de la ciencia, damos inicio a este seminario internacional. Muchas gracias.
Okay, good morning. My name is Hartmut Neuer. I'm the chairperson of ENSA, which is the European Network of Scientists for Social and Environmental Responsibility. Together with good friends who are here, we were founding that network actually in 2010 to gather critical experience and critical scientific advice, mainly in the European context, to exactly connect to the issues you pointed out, to the tendency that there is more and more corporate science in the way that important decisions will be taken without listening to independent science. These are all the issues which our network is going to tackle. Since ENSA was founded, I was participating in the Cartagena Protocol negotiations, which will continue on Sunday in Cancun. And we always had a scientific conference before to talk about our topics, to talk about our side of the issues, to present independent science. And then we will go to the international negotiations and present the results of these conferences there to show that there is more than just the corporate science in this field. Can you just... I'd like to give a very brief, a very brief overview about what this conference is about and my excuses. So these are recent headlines from German newspapers. You don't need to learn German now, I'm going to explain this in English. Why would I put German newspapers here? Well, you know that a big German company now has bought Monsanto, and that our country is, let's say, host of the major worldwide seed company that distributes GM crops, and that will have profound effects on the German politics. I'm pretty sure. On the other side, several German states, the parliaments of these German states, federal states, have declared that these states should be free of GM crops. So there's a very strong movement in my country against. And we will see what this brings in the future. You know that the planting of GM crops in the EU is more or less not allowed. Because member states cannot agree on approving those plants, and also there Germany plays quite a substantial role because as the largest country in the EU, it has also the most votes in these decision-making procedures. So we will experience a very important time in the next future. Please go ahead. So that is a major newspaper, the Zeit, Times, German word for Times, and they were asking where is the saving gene food. So in the context of climate change, they run a big article that nothing has happened apart from these herbicide-resistant crops and BT crops, and that the major issues now agriculture is facing is not tackled by genetic engineering. And they interviewed Bayer and other companies and came to the conclusion that all these climate-relevant traits are based on many genes, and that genetic engineering so far failed to address these complex traits. That sounds pretty interesting, but that is nothing new. When I started all this, my first presentation on GE was in 1984. It's quite a time ago. And already at that time, I had to deal with all these promises, great promises, and it was at that time on the advice of one of my professors to talk about nitrogen fixation in plants, which was at that time not even understood at the molecular level, but the people already dreamt of GE crops that could fix nitrogen. And I went to my professors and asked them about, so they showed me literature, and the one told me, oh listen, this will never happen. Because he just remembered all the hype about proteins in the 60s and 70s, when there was the dream that the world will be fed by protein factories. That was, so he told me all that stories to say, well, that seems to be very similar. I mean, I think since more than 20 years now, we have all these promises, and I think that they are actually based on a wrong understanding of science. So that even the science doesn't work. That is something which we need to see, and we will have more examples during our conference. And so this article just repeats something people were telling us in 20 years. The next one. The next one is also interesting. That's a major daily newspaper, one of the largest in Germany, a conservative newspaper. And the KWS is the largest German seed company, actually one of the largest in the world. It's still family owned. It's such an influential company in Germany. And they say, well, they have an article on the merger of Bayer and Monsanto, and they say, well, that wouldn't tackle their business. And the CEO of KWS told the newspaper that the Senate of Genetic Engineering has succeeded, so that he didn't believe in this any longer. And he told a lot of details about his customers, and I think that is the other side of the story of genetic engineering, that all these science, all these companies are going to produce products which need to be bought by people. Otherwise it doesn't make sense to develop all that. And then also from the science that might not really work to the customers who are not actually willing to buy it. I think that's the whole range of discussion which we need to talk about. And as a seed company, they specifically focus on the farmers as their customers. And so he's pretty much convinced, the CEO, that the majority of farmers don't like these packed solutions offered by the companies. They want to deal with seeds and pesticides on their own. They want to be, let's say, their own masters, what they should do. And he made a very clear distinction between, let's say, family-based farming business, which still uses pesticides, of course, in most countries, and the huge agro companies. So he said, well, for them, these packet solution makes sense, because they deal 5,000 hectares all the same. They don't care if there are differences in soil, whatever. They do always the same stuff. But smaller farmers, educated farmers, skilled farmers will certainly look into the details, and for them, these packet solutions are not the way. That is also quite interesting, and is even quite interesting for a company that run the first field trials with GE crops in Germany. At that time, they were deeply engaged in genetic engineering. They are still selling these sugar beets, Roundup Ready sugar beets in the US. But also, that company was, when they developed the first GE sugar beets, in parallel, they founded a second group in their company pursuing the same aims with conventional breeding. And who won? It was the conventional breeders, who brought the, at that time, new virus-resistant sugar beets. But also in the public, the PR was always on the side of the GE stuff, which failed. Nobody was told about that. The same company that was propagating GE solutions like 20 years ago actually produced the successful sugar beets by conventional breeding. So I think that also shows that even in these companies, often they run different strategies. While you will hear about the GE stuff, but you will never hear about their alternatives. They will also do. And I think with this, I will open this conference and give the word to all the other speakers, and we'll give you a lot of examples on these different aspects. And I also have to introduce some changes in the program. Because we need to inform you that Chris Portier, who was scheduled this morning, and Sarah Agapitu for this afternoon, they were not able to come due to health reasons and their doctor's advice, so they have to stay home. We will fill these gaps with an additional contribution by Jack Heinemann in the morning, and in the afternoon I will give you a bit of more information about recent developments in the EU on the legal developments. And we have further tomorrow, that's Christoph Thien who was speaking about the spread of transgenes, yes. That talk will be given by Angelika, so you will hear about this. And Christoph really needs to excuse himself because he was one of the founders of the No Patterns of Life campaign in the early 90s. And the European Commission announced, I think it was last week, that they will issue a statement that there should not be patterns on plants and animals any longer. And that will be a major policy statement in the European Union, and he has to go to some consultations on that. And so, because that's his life, and so the decision was made that he should stay in the EU, in Europe, to follow that path, and then we will give his presentation here. So that's a pity, but on the other side, I think it will be a tremendous political success if the European Commission declares that there should not be any patents on plants any longer. Okay, thank you.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. It's really an honor for Third World Network to co-organize this scientific conference with UCCS, NAL, and NSTER. My organization, Third World Network, is an international NGO based in Malaysia, and we have actually been closely tracking the discussion around genetic engineering and biosafety since it was first brought into the international agenda. In fact, actually, it was my country, Malaysia, that first raised the concerns about GMO at the international negotiations of the Convention on Biological Diversity at the leading up to the Rio Earth Summit in 1992. So we have been talking about the need for regulation for GMOs for maybe the last 24 years already. And today at this conference and tomorrow we will be taking stock as to what the effects have been, whether the promises have been met or not, what have been the ecological and societal impacts of GM crops that are planted in several countries today and increasingly so also in developing countries. I think the agenda of what's happening in Cancun, starting from Sunday, which will be the meetings of the UN Biodiversity Conference, the Convention on Biological Diversity, and the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. What we are discussing here is very relevant to that. Okay? The Cartagena Protocol, of course, is the only still specific law that regulates genetic engineering globally. It's a legally binding treaty. It's a protocol of the Convention on Biological Diversity. So it looks especially at the impacts of GM crops on biological diversity, but also taking into account risks to human health. And our experience has been that the input of critical scientists, of independent scientists, is very important. And it does shape the discussions and negotiations because at the right times when scientists are able to stand up and say, look, this is what is happening, we need to take account of this. Or for example, this is what is happening in developing countries where maybe the regulatory capacity is not really there or there's not enough people, scientists that are able to critically interrogate these issues. This is what is happening. And I think that's very important to continue. So it's really an honor for us at TWN to collaborate with NSTER and Fox and Oxfam in co-organizing this conference. One thing that will be discussed under the protocol will be issues of risk assessment. They will look socioeconomic considerations. We will also look at unintentional transboundary movement, and of course the issues of gene spread, gene flow, which we'll be discussing tomorrow morning, detection, identification of GMOs will be very important to that. The COP, the Conference of Parties to the CBD, will also be taking up as a major issue this time the issue of synthetic biology. So many of the techniques and applications which we'll be discussing later this morning, for example, on genome editing, gene drives, RNAi, these are very relevant to the agenda of the COP. And the main discussion now, the main fight, is really about whether these new techniques are going to come under robust, comprehensive global oversight by the international community, whether they are going to be protective of biodiversity and human health and of community rights. So this will again be a very important discussion that our discussions can feed into. And in fact, one concrete thing that civil society organizations are doing with the backing of critical and independent scientists is to say, look, we need to have a moratorium on the research, applied development, experimentation and release of genetically engineered gene drives because of the huge lack in global governance and oversight on this issue and the huge societal, cultural and ecological impacts that such techniques could have. So I think it's very pertinent, very timely to have this conference, and part of what we hope to do also is to bring the results and the key messages from all the presentations here over the next 2 days and present them at the COP meetings in Cancun, at side events which are being organized by ENSA, and I'm sure that whatever we discuss here will be also amplified in Cancun. So I wish you all well for the conference, and thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Agradezco mucho a los representantes de UX, ENSA y de Third World Network por haber abierto el evento que va a tener lugar aquí hoy y mañana. Ahora vamos a proceder a la siguiente sesión, cuyo título es el estado actual de la bioseguridad y los análisis de riesgo, haciendo un inventario. En esta siguiente sesión también tengo que avisar que la doctora Ayasa, Delia Ayasa, también por motivos de salud no pudo llegar a la Ciudad de México. Por lo tanto, el doctor Medardo Ávila Vázquez, que es un colega suyo, hablará un poco de la investigación que han estado haciendo de manera conjunta. Y por lo tanto invito al doctor Jack Heinemann, al doctor Medardo Ávila Vázquez, que pase por favor aquí al podio, a la doctora Angélica Hilbeck también. Y el doctor Damián Marino sí está aquí en México, pero parece que está gozando del tráfico endémico de nuestra ciudad. Esperemos que llegue pronto. Y bueno, al igual que sucedió con nuestros ponentes anteriores, les voy a pedir que cada uno se presente de manera individual, una breve reseña de quiénes son y bueno, den paso a su presentación. Por lo tanto, en este primer bloque, antes de receso para el café, estará el doctor Heinemann, estará el doctor Ávila. Les voy a pedir que si tratamos de llegar a las 11 de la mañana entre las dos presentaciones para tener el receso del café, será excelente, pero bueno, lo importante es la investigación científica que van a presentar aquí. Entonces, bueno, les doy la palabra en primera instancia al doctor Heinemann.
Buenos dias. It is a great pleasure to be here. My name is Jack Heinemann. I am a professor of genetics and molecular biology at the University of Canterbury in New Zealand. We have swapped around the talks that I was going to do today, so my first talk is going to now be on the issue that I was going to speak on at noon, which is the pesticide issue. We felt fit a little bit better in the theme this morning.
Now, is it okay with you if I stand there? Yes. Okay.
very, very tender. So we've been doing some research looking at the impacts of various kinds of herbicides on microorganisms. Now, you may hear a lot about pesticides and their impact on human health as a direct toxicity issue. But you probably have heard less about their impact on microbes. The world is facing a crisis, though, with microbes because they're becoming resistant at an alarming pace to antibiotics. So along with climate change, antibiotic resistance is now being touted as one of the world's great crises. We've only had the use of modern antibiotics for about 70 years. And they underpin almost all aspects of our health system. But in addition to those organisms that cause disease, we rely upon microorganisms on our skin and in our gut and in the soil and on the food we eat to keep us safe from those pathogens. So it becomes an interesting and an important question to understand how our technologies influence these various microbiomes, the microbes of the world. And our research has been starting to look at chemicals that are being used in all different aspects of the industrial life, but aren't designed to have anything to do with microbes. So this talk isn't specifically about antibiotics. It's about all those other chemicals in our environment for which we've never studied the intersection between the microbe and that chemical. We live in a highly chemical-intensive world. There are something on the order of 80 to 100,000 different chemicals in commerce. Most of these chemicals have never been tested directly for their impacts